The main topic of lesson 12.3 is the subjunctive. So far, all the verb tenses that we've learned in this class, the present, the preterite, and perfect, all are considered to be in the indicative mood. And what that means is that these actions or expressions or state of being are all considered to have happened, to happen, or are real, definite things that actually happened. So the subjunctive, on the other hand, is a mood that expresses uncertainty or hypothetical actions, or there's doubt whether or not the action has occurred or not. So you can see it here kind of broken down. So we have the indicative mood, which contains the present tense, which we've learned, the imperfect tense, the preterite, all things which have happened or do happen or are happening. In later classes, we'll learn about the future and the conditional tense. The subjunctive mood, you also have the present subjunctive, just like you have the present indicative, and you also have the past subjunctive, which encompasses sort of both the imperfect and the preterite. So as you can see here, these are just the general verb endings for AR, ER, and IR verbs in the subjunctive. So you can see AR verbs just have one ending, and ER and IR verbs have both the same endings. So what you do is you take off ER, IR, AR, and add the appropriate ending depending on who is doing the action. So you can see some examples here. Hablar, take off the AR, since it's an AR verb. If you want to conjugate it to the yo form in the present subjunctive, it would be yo hable, tú hables, usted hable, nosotros hablemos. And likewise with comer and escribir, they both have the exact same endings for ER and IR verbs. So coma, comas, coma, escriba, escribas, escriba, and so forth. So you can see here some regular verbs, mainly with irregular yo forms. So hago, yo oigo, yo tengo, yo traduzco, yo traigo. They also maintain that same irregularity in the present subjunctive. The only difference is the ending here. So, for example, these all end with an O. In this case, these all end with an A. Also, these cargar zar verbs also have a spelling change in all forms of the present subjunctive. So, saque, 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 saquemos, juegue, juegues, juegue, juguemos, almuerce, almuerces, almuerce, almorcemos. So the stem changes depending if it's cargar and zar to maintain the same pronunciation, and the ending is in agreement with whether it's an AR, ER, or IR verb. Verbs that do have stem changes also have the stem changes in the subjunctive, just like they do in the present indicative tense, mainly AR and ER verbs. So as you can see, ir I, they have the stem change in all the forms except for nosotros, oro y, ir ahí, and so forth. The only difference are IR stem changing verbs. The main difference is that they also have a stem change in the nosotros form in the subjunctive. So as you can see, pedir, pida, pidas, pida, pidamos, pidan, sentir, sienta, sientas, sienta, sintamos. So pay attention to that. Make sure you know the difference between IR, AR, and ER stem changing verbs, particularly in the subjunctive. The nice thing is there are only 5 irregular verbs in the present subjunctive. Dar, estar, ir, saber, and ser. One thing to also remember is the verb I, or there is, there are, hay 10 personas, hay 20 personas, is also irregular in the subjunctive, haya. So in general, there are 4 main uses of the subjunctive, and for the next few lessons, we'll go a little more into detail about these uses of the subjunctive. But generally, they're used to express will and influence, emotions, doubt, disbelief, denial, and indifference, and non-existence. So like I said, we'll go in depth about each of these categories in the coming lessons. Generally, in subjunctive sentences or phrases, there are 2 clauses. The first clause generally triggers the subjunctive, and the word que connects them both. So a good indicator that you'll be using the subjunctive if you ever see it or want to express it is if you have the word que in the sentence. So it's good that, it's nice that, and so forth. And these are the main expressions here, and personal expressions that we'll be working on for the first lesson, that all are always followed by the subjunctive after this clause. So, es bueno que, es good that, es importante que, es mejor que, es necesario que, es malo que, es urgente que. So as you can see, they all have that phrase que, and meaning they all are followed by the subjunctive. So for the first homework assignment, all you have to do is fill in the blank with the correct subjunctive or present subjunctive conjugation of the verb. So es bueno que ustedes, so the subject is ustedes and the verb is comer, so the conjugation would be coman. Es bueno que ustedes coman frutas. It's good that you eat fruits and vegetables. Number 2, es importante que Laura y yo estudiemos, ¿no? Because it's nosotros. Es urgente que el doctor te mire, ¿no? Because the subject is el doctor. Es malo que los niños no lean mucho de pequeños. Los niños is the subject. Leer, lean. For the next homework assignment, what you have to do is put the sentence together, conjugating the verbs and adding any prepositions if there are any. So we have importante, Nora, pensar las cosas antes de tomar una decisión. So we know, we're using one of those subjunctive phrases, we would put es importante que, it's important that. We have Nora, then the verb, ella piense en las cosas antes de tomar una decisión. So altogether it would be, es importante que Nora piense en las cosas antes de tomar una decisión. Number 2, necesario tú entender la situación de esas personas. So we have that phrase or clause that triggers the subjunctive, es necesario que, and then tú conjugate entender to tú, so it would be entiendas la situación de esas personas. So altogether, es necesario que tú entiendas la situación de esas personas. Finally, the last one, what you have to do is answer the questions with sí, yes. So number 1, using the word in parentheses here, that will trigger the subjunctive. So number 1, debemos traer el pasaporte al aeropuerto. Do we have to bring our passport to the airport? So answer that, it would be yes, it's necessary that you bring your passport to the airport. So using this phrase, necesario, sí, es necesario que, and you're talking to ustedes, no, because there's more than one person, nosotros. So sí, es necesario que traigan el pasaporte al aeropuerto. Number 2, tienes que hablar con Don Mario. You have to speak with Don Mario. And you say, yes, it is urgent that I speak with Don Mario. So sí, es urgente que hable con Don Mario. One thing to remember is that we do have the subjunctive in the English language, the English grammar. It's necessary that, but certainly we generally use the present tense to communicate it. But it's still used in the same form to some extent.